Luke 8:43. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind Yeshua and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When all denied it, Peter said, "It is the people in the crowd pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Mark 16. And these signs will accompany those who believe. In my name they will drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up snakes with their hands. And when they drink deadly poison, it will not hurt them. They will place their hands on sick people, and they will get well. Then the disciples went out and preached everywhere, and the Lord worked with them and confirmed his word by the signs that accompanied them. All right, guys. Now we are on to new mini-series. The prior one was Appreciation Appreciates. Before that, we had Be in Love. Before that, we had Know Thyself. Some other stuff. Okay. Where are we going with this one? This one is going to be Miracle Mindset. All right. So you notice the scripture that we had before playing with the music was Luke 8:43 and Mark 16:17. Right. And so where are we going to go with this, right? So we'll just briefly go over the Luke one without the music, kind of touch base on it. So more or less, right, a woman was there. She had a calamity or disease for 12 years. Nobody was able to heal her. And when Yeshua, Jesus, whatever you want to call it, was walking through, someone touched him. It was her, right? And she was instantly healed. And she basically fell down on her knees to, almost in a sign of worshiping him. And this is very telling what he said next, right? Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace," right? And then we had Mark. Let's go John 5, okay? So John 5 says, "Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity for 38 years. When Yeshua saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time, he said to the man, 'Do you want to be made well?' The sick man answered him, 'Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I am coming, another steps down before me.'" So I cut a little bit out just to make this kind of cleaner. But basically, there's this healing pools in Bethesda, right? Fun fact, so Bethesda is both an Aramaic and a Hebrew word. One means sin, house of sin, and the other one means house of mercy. Very interesting. National Institute of Health is right next to Bethesda. Anyways, so Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. Afterwards, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." So a couple things here that are very important. We're going to be talking about miracle mindset here, and we're going to get into producing miracles. Right? There are miracles happening all the time, but what we're going to focus on here is bringing miracles with more clarity, at least. Get ourselves in a position where not only do we acknowledge the miracles that are present already and grow our strength and understanding in the source of those miracles and our ability to act as conduits to channel them, and in our ability to have them manifest in the world. It's there's the mindset of man, and I'll dive into this later. It's the mindset of statistics. And then there's the mindset of the creator, which is the mindset of miracles, bringing in wonder, right? And there is a difference. A whole bunch of scripture talking about the wisdom of man, right? It's interesting, the word man, first three letters in the word manifest, right? For they knew the knowledge of God is a lie, and they worshipped the creature more than the creator. They worshipped the creation more than the creator, right? And so in this series, who knows how many episodes I'll do, we're really going to start applying some scripture, of course, in practical understanding of what's already in front of your face, right? People say, I was in a space on Twitter yesterday, X space, and there was a great gentleman in there, and he was talking about substance abuse, and he's at that stage of kind of waking up to it, and professed his doubt in a God or a creator. And I had the same thing, because I think there's a lot of misinterpretations of what God or the creator was. I think it was personified a little too much. So anyways, the point is, my goal here with this series, the Miracle Mindset, is to kind of clear out some of the refuse and damming that we have up, preventing our ability to express even more miracles with more, like I said, clarity of intention. Right? And to do that, of all things get ye wisdom and understanding. Right. So in this one, here's a very important thing. He said, "Do you want to be made well?" All right. Very, very important question. I would say for those who are out there working for and in servants of miracle mindset, it's a very important question we need to ask. Or what do you want? What are you hoping for? What are you looking for? What are you desiring? Do you want to be healed? It's something that I ask. I found if it's not asked, there's laws, and I'm still processing and getting a better understanding of them. And I have a feeling that doing these podcasts is part of the process for me. What we give, we receive. So as I do these, it brings out stuff that, it's weird because it feels like I'm just discovering it. So just removing a cover of something that was already there. It's something about being in the act of producing these and expressing it brings it out of me. So it's really, really helpful. And I get more clarity on the law. There's a lot of times, like I've said in other podcasts, I listen to these afterwards, and there's always new stuff that I didn't know I knew. I learned from them myself. So it's important to ask, right? And then there's another piece in here. And immediate rise, take up your bed and walk. All right. So then it was a declaration. He asked him, he said, "Do you want to be made well?" And then he said, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. You notice it doesn't say in here that he did Reiki on him or that he had the man do yoga. Said, "Do you want to be made well? Get up." And the man did. We all, as we become more aware of these instruments, avatar characters that we are, will be imbued with certain gifts. Why that is and why certain ones have certain gifts, who knows? They are gifts, though. Who knows if they're overlapping gifts, if we all get the same. I do realize that the power of influence goes up considerably as you become more aware of what you are, and it becomes more and more important to really watch what you say. It's almost like it's so going to the other thing that Jesus said, he says, see, you have been made well, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. And that's an interesting statement because it's almost like to be healed. So the word healed, if you really kind of dive into the etymology of it, it means to be made whole. Right? And so what's the opposite of being made whole? To be divided. A house divided against itself cannot stand, right? Dis-ease, disharmony, discord, disjoined, right? So I've noticed that as I've been healing this character, vessel, avatar, me, it's almost like the effects from the old paradigms are stronger. For example, going through my life like everybody else, I if you were to say, relatively speaking, if you put me in, compared me to the majority, I would imagine that, like, if they did a statistic thing or something, that when it came to being honest, I was probably considerably more honest than the mob mind, like the majority, right? But I told white lies all the time. I'll be there in 15 minutes if it was going to be 20 minutes. It was like this little calculation of just like, what's the right number to say so that you don't make the person too mad, but you let them know you're running late, silly things like that, right? And I feel like I was able to go through my life reasonably okay with that, but now, like, I can't even do white lies. I can feel it. It's like smacks me right in my face. It's terrible. I mean, it's actually beautiful, but so there's something about that. And so he says, see, you've been made well, sin no more, lest a worse thing come to you. The other thing, judgments. Man, again, if you were to look at a relativity standpoint, yes, it probably was considerably more open-minded and less judgmental than what we would consider to be the majority, in that, like, there's just some things I just never cared. I was like, I don't care what orientation someone is, like, it never really made sense. Who cares? I'm like, that's what they like. What do I care? If the person likes Butterfinger bars over Snickers bars, or they like eating carrots over celery, or apples over oranges, why would that bother me at all? It did make no sense to me. I did learn I did have some judgments against particular people. As an overarching generalization, I would say I actually had an issue with judgmental people. And there's a reason, in my whole healing process, I figured out where they came from. But so again, probably less judgmental overall than the majority, which helped me to feel pretty comfortable in my judgment capacity throughout this awakening process. However, like, I can feel if I go around somebody and I have a judgment, not even against them personally, but there's some buried judgment against their archetype, their behavior patterns. And by the way, so the whole judgment discernment thing, I'm not doing that in this episode, but I will say this. There's a difference between discernment and judgment. They're different energy that you feel. One comes from a place of fear, uncertainty, doubt, and like it's a weak reaction that's fueled by fear. And discernment is a powerful action or response that is just fueled by intention. That's it. It's like You know, discernment. I'm going to the store. Okay, so I'm going to take a left instead of a right, and then a right instead of a left. Then I'm going to go straight to the next street. Then I'm going to walk past the park. That's discernment. Right? Judgment is, oh my God, why is that right there when I'm supposed to be taking a left? Why did that come there? It's fear-based. But not only is it fear-based, it has an energy signature of attack. Because, what does an animal do when it gets cornered? It runs first, and then it turns around and fights. Right? So it's a weakness energy exuded from us, and then, but it's also that weakness. The reaction to it is, it's an attacky kind of energy, condemning energy, punishing energy, and so it gets sent out from you at the other people, even if you don't say anything. And there are lots of people that are out there right now that presently aren't aware of what's going on. Right? It's like I've said it before: a blind man who goes out in the sun. Just because he doesn't see the sun when he goes outside, he feels it. He may not be able to tell you what it is. Like if he was just a blind man and nobody explained it to him, he may not be able to tell you what's going on, but he's going to feel the effects. And he's going to react to the effects accordingly. Right? So if a blind man goes out in the sun, he doesn't need to know there's a sun. He's just going to react. So if the sun is hot, his response may be to take off his jacket. Right? Or run away, or go back inside, or something like that. But the point is that he will feel it, and he will react to it, and he will react in accordance with a way to protect himself. Right? So if we have judgments against another person, that energy comes off of us, and depending upon how aware the person is, they'll be aware that it's coming from you. Or most people won't even be aware that it's coming from you. What will happen is that judgmental energy will hit them, and then they'll literally just react. And to them, it may just seem like all of a sudden they just had a negative thought about you, like they just won't like you or something, right? Or they'll suppress it. There's a whole bunch of things that goes on with it. But anyways, what I found is, who knows? Maybe I was... I don't know. Maybe who knows if things have if it's gotten more intense now. But I would, or I'm just so aware. I'm so sensitive to it now that I've been made whole. So sin no more. There's no point in me going backwards. I can't, and I don't want to at all. So now I've realized, in Revelations, Jesus said, "For you who is lukewarm, I spit you out of my mouth." If I'm trying to go north, right? What benefit is there for me to turn around and go the opposite direction? None. So if I understand that judgments don't work, why would I still do them some of the time? If I understand that it's not in my best interest to become a heroin addict, why do heroin at all? It doesn't make any sense. The only reason you do it is because you still think that there's a desire. And if you're desiring something that's working against you, then it's a misalignment, it's a misunderstanding of the circumstance, rooted in believing that you are missing something that you think that thing will give you, and it's a lie. Right? So anyways, that's that on John. We went over the Mark one, right? No, I don't know if I did that. I don't think so. Mark 16:17. And these signs will accompany those who believe. And in my name they will drive out demons. So to me, that's not having to yell out Jesus' name. His name wasn't even Jesus. It was Yeshua. Right? But he also said, of my own self, I can do nothing. Through me, the Father does all things. Right? So I would imagine that yelling out the name of that self that he said did nothing probably wouldn't be very helpful, right? It's logical, right? So what name is it? You could say technically, you could say in the name of Christ, but it would be just basically in the name of one who recognizes that the kingdom is within them. The Creator literally is within you. That you are the channel, the conduit between the two worlds. that of the unknown world and that of the known world, that of the spirit and that of the flesh, right? That of the creator and that of the created, that and the cause and that of the effect, right in the center there. There's a lot of other stuff I talked about in other spaces. I keep doing that. Other podcasts here that kind of really allude to the whole center thing. So we're not going to go into that there. But he said, in my name, you'll drive out demons. They will speak in new tongues. All right. So, and what I'm going on here with is miracle workers, right? So the miracle mindset. Let's see miracle. Like, you know, you hear the phrase, like, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. To me, evil is live backwards in spelling and in truth, and that is to worship the creation over the creator, right? So it's to look out at a world and think that that world is creating you. It's a prison. It's to look out at the thoughts that come in from your subjective consciousness as if they are creating, as they are thinking you. Just inversion. It's an inverted way of thinking, right? And demons, right? So in Unix, it's a software platform. It's they use it for Linux. They used to use it for Solaris, which is Sun Microsystems. Anyways, in the programming language, they have these things called daemons. D-A-I-M-O. I don't know. Daemons. D-A-E-M-O-N-S. I think it's that. I think it's D-A-E-M-O-N-S. And daemons for the software is basically it is a program independent of the main processor that runs and handles tasks for the program, and it does it automatically, and it of its own self really doesn't think. It just does exactly what it was programmed to do, right? Really interesting, right? So a daemon is basically a program that runs in the background. A script that runs in the background. A script that runs in the background, right? So you get the script running in the background, daemon, right? Also, if you look up the etymology of it, daemon, you can kind of see two different variations. One is a tutelary spirit, an educational spirit. That more or less would be what we could consider to be positive. And then the other one is the darker one that people are familiar with, you know, demons, and, you know, they're quote unquote negative, right? So when we look at it as the context of, they're just simply scripts, right? Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas, the dead are not alive and the living cannot die. The dead are not alive and the living cannot die. And we talked about in prior episodes of, you know, to really simplify the cross of understanding of self. Everything is inversions, right? In order for you to be conscious, you sit at the center of a bunch of inversions, right? And in each understanding that you gain of yourself, as you become more aware of the multidimensional being that is you, you realize that being is to be in something. So it means to be in the center of something. Be in the center of what? Be in the center of your observations of self, right? And so, for example, if you were to be a being in space, and if you were to be a being in space, then we would need coordinates for that, right? So let's say you're a being in space and you are facing north, okay? So with you facing north, that also means that in front of you is north, right? That's what gives you a subjective interpretation of your reality, which in other words makes you conscious. And so this is how you can really take the macro and the micro, right? If you can understand one thing and you have a grasp of the law of inversions, you can realize that if there's this thing, then its inversion must be true. And that the inversion, the characteristics of the inversion aspect of this other thing will mean that the more like that thing you become, the less like the other thing you become. So if you know what it's like to turn the volume up, you can now know what it's like to turn the volume down. Right? The properties, the more you turn it down, the less like up it is. Serving two masters. Can't serve two masters. You'll offend one and you'll honor the other. Can't turn the volume up and down simultaneously. Well, at least not on that plane of dimension. There are more dimensions, but anyways, yes. So, so if north exists, south exists. Now, again, because of the law of inversions, you're sitting in the center between north and south. Because of the law of inversion, now there needs to be an east and west. So there's a vertical line, and its inversion would be a horizontal line, right? And then when you have an X now, when you have a cross, now you make an X, right? And it's kind of cool because the thing about the X is the X blends, right? So when you look at the cross is standing on its own with kind of a solid thing. It's like, I am north, I am south, I am east, and I am west. They're kind of pointed in a direction where they can boldly stand as individual units in a sense, right? When you put the X through it, the X, the properties of the X are kind of an inversion because they're less solidly declaring their independence, and instead they're forming union and relationship between the objects that are already there, right? So now the left side of the cross is now northwest, right? So even by that context, it's kind of an inversion. There's kind of a blending there, and why am I even going there? Doesn't matter. So that's kind of how it works, right? But to simplify it for the sake of this, is if you have a material world in front of you in the present moment, okay, then that means that that's a manifestation, right? Material. The first several letters of material are M-A-T-E-R, mater, and it's Latin. It means womb, mother, right? Womb or mother, and it's actually connected to the word matrix, right? So when you look out in front of your face, right, what you're seeing, Jesus said, when you know what's in front of your face, it is your own self who will be known. And you will see that you are the children of the living Father. If you do not come to know yourself, you will live in poverty, and it will be you that is the poverty, right? And that's in the Gospel of Thomas. So that's the matrix, right? So the matrix is a manifestation, or as we talked about in the energy, frequency, vibration, know thyself series. It is the vibration, the manifestation, the effect, the receiver, the created, the creature, right? And what makes up it, the properties of that, right? Well, what makes up the properties of that are that it is the most needy, limited, and defined. It's a creation. Of course it's needy. It needs something to create it, right? You can see all of it, right? Which means it's defined, right? Limited, needy, and defined. And of course it's limited, right? And then so now you must have an inversion of that, right? So what's the inversion of that? So what you're seeing in front of your face is what's known. So it would be the unknown. It would be the least defined aspect, right? So the inversion of the created is the creator. And instead of being the most defined, it is the least defined, least visible, least corporeal, right? And so wherein the outer world is needy, it cannot create itself, the inner world, the creator world, is needless. It is the source of all things, right? And then so you have the outer world that is limited, the creator source is limitless. You have the outer world which is needy, the inner world which is needless, selfless, it just gives abundantly. And then you have the outer world is defined and the inner world is not defined. And this is why Jesus said the kingdom is as small as a mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds, but when nurtured will grow into a tree that will shelter even the birds in heaven. And fun fact, the word heaven in Greek was Uranus, which means expansion. So the kingdom of expansion is as small as a mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds, but when nurtured will grow into a tree that will shelter even the birds in heaven. Right? So if you think about it, if the guy's talking to farmers, right? And that's the thing about people that the miracle workers that are out here right now. Miracle workers aren't better than anybody else. We all have our roles, right? And so the miracle workers, what was my thought going to be there? I lost that train of thought, but we'll go with this one. So the kingdom of heaven is as small as a mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds, right? Oh, that's what it was. When Yeshua was going out and speaking to the people, he had to meet them where they were at. Love always meets you where you're at. Right? And that's a beautiful thing about a healer or a miracle worker or a miracle expresser, whatever you want to call it, is you will, when you tune into the frequency of the person that you're sitting across, the quote-unquote Holy Spirit, Spirit of Truth, Spirit of Love, whatever you want to call it, miracle spirit, will work through you. And you can literally, your personality can get out of the way, and the connection to that divine mind will literally give you exactly what you need to say. That's the craziest thing about all of this. The old me would have never imagined that the answer to all of this stuff was just to kind of walk around and just tune into the frequency of the greatest good, and it would just work through you. It's like the only choice you ever make, right? The choiceless choice. Like, why would I not choose to say the best thing possible? And if I can say the worst thing possible, then it would be a delusion to think that I didn't have it within me to say the best thing possible. It's silly, right? They have to exist. Just like any question has to have an answer. Because the minute the question is born, the answer is born. So along with it, it's magic. So when Jesus was talking to the people, he would say, the kingdom of heaven is as small as a mustard seed. He didn't just say mustard seed, right? He said this because they could relate to that, right? But he said the smallest of all seeds. And to me, that's indicating that it is the smallest perceivable thing, which would be, you can't see it. Like an atom, right? But atom just means the smallest divisible thing that you can divide, right? So, you can keep dividing and dividing and dividing. So it's just, you keep going, and it's basically invisible, right? So the creator aspect is the least limited, needy, and defined, right? And so it's invisible, it's powerful, and it's selfless. It's impersonal. It gives, it rains on, like the Bible says, rains on and shines sun on both the good and evil alike. God is no respecter of persons. It's impersonal. Pours through the conduit of you into your creation. And the way that you see everything, because that's a beautiful thing, is you're there in the center. And some people say, oh, we're the observer. In a sense, we're the observer, but I think that it's what's missed when people speak about the observer is that by observing is how you serve. Because as you observe, you interpret, and as you interpret, you create. So as a creator beings, the craziest part about all of this is you're not actually in the body. You're experiencing being in the body in a state of consciousness, and the way you see things changes them. Right? If someone acts out in a way that's like lashes out at someone else, if you trace it all the way back, it's because of a judgment. Well, what's the judgment from? The judgment's from an interpretation. What's the interpretation from? A perspective. It's just an amalgam of perspectives, value, belief paradigms in that ethereal consciousness mind that are crystallizing and manifesting out in the real world. Or the realized world is probably a better way to say it, right? I'm not an advocate of saying the outer world is an illusion, because that's just pitting the two against each other. If you can't beat them, join them, right? Don't try to beat it. If you want to see it as an illusion, then what are we doing here? Go jump off a bridge, right? This is not, I'm not telling anybody to jump off a bridge, but I'm saying if it's like the whole purpose of this life was to prove that it's an illusion, then what are you doing here? Just end it, It doesn't make any sense, right? And I say that because I went down that path, and I just got really apathetic and confused. And I had a little voice in my head saying, what am I doing here? I was like, I don't know. And the funny thing is I still I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I do know my purpose, right? Overall, like, arching idea of my purpose, and then the rest fills in the blanks each moment. So the going back to the cross of self, right? If you want to just for simplicity's sake and imagination, think of your feet grounded, right? God said, "Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool." Right? So you can kind of think of like your proverbial feet are on the ground, right? From that in a physical sense, but from a spiritual sense, it's just the part of you that's like looking out. Like the body could almost be like your feet. It's your instrument for being able to be here and do things, right? And your outer world is connected to that. It's the ground that you're on, and so you can learn a lot about things by paying close attention to what has manifest in front of you, what's in front of you, right? Observe it, right? Don't deny it or suppress it, but just pay attention to it. It has an important role. Now that's all defined. That's all the stuff you can see. And then imagine the more in the opposite direction you go from your feet up towards your head, that more into, this is just for imagination's sake, right? Because I think we're transcendent of the body, but just for the imagination's sake. And then the less like the feet you go, the more into the heaven you get, right? And let's imagine that it doesn't just stop at your brain, right? Let's imagine you have a halo above your head, and that connects you to the unknown, right? And where the outer world, where your feet are is very personal. It's a very personal world, right? There's all these different personifications, right? Everything is its own individual, separate I am, communicating with each other. And so what's fascinating is if the closer you get to your feet, the more personal things are, and individual and separate they are. Well, then if you get up to the top, up to your head, to the mind, right? It's actually going to be less personal. It's going to be more impersonal. So that unknown force will get channeled into you, right? But it gets called in to you by what you value and what you desire, and what you see it as, right? So let's look at right now. Where are you? So you're in the heart, right? So you're in the heart. It's your job to join together the feet, the personal material realm, right, with the unknown divine, right? So you can almost look like the feet are the effect, and the question, the receiver, and then and they're pulling in from the heavens things that align with it. And so if you don't regulate things correctly, the feet, the more like the feet you become, the more animalistic and separate you become, selfish, greedy, prideful, all those things. So it needs some management to realize that we're not just animals. We're connected to the divine, right? So you're the heart, kind of in the middle, right? But it's very, very important to I believe, I know actually, it's very important to monitor your perspectives, right? Like I said before, appreciation appreciates, and judgment is the opposite of appreciation. It's a de-appreciation. And all judgment stems from a lack of responsibility or a lack of perspective of one's ability to respond appropriately to a situation, right? I think I said in one of the prior episodes, an example would be if you went out to dinner and there were 20 things on the menu and 5 of them were the most horrendous, disgusting foods in the world, 10 were mediocre, and 5 were like the best, right? You're going to be able to look at the menu at the grossed foods, and you're not going to care. You not going to care, right? You're not going to care. You're not going to judge it. It is what it is, right? Why? Because you have so many other options. You have the ability to respond appropriately to get what you want, right? So again, you're using discernment in that situation, but you're not judging. So that's the thing about judgment. And the thing about judgment energy is so many people have been trained to believe that holding on to those judgments, that judgmental energy, is somehow in their benefit. It simply isn't. Just like if you don't want to be a heroin addict, doing heroin occasionally, it's of no value. And if you don't want to be a heroin addict, doing heroin all the time is definitely not in alignment with what you want, right? So I think it's helpful to keep that in mind, the difference between judgment and discernment. And if what I'm saying resonates with you, but you're like kind of like, not sure I fully get what you're saying, and it's something that you want to understand more, hey man, turn it over to the creator within you and say, hey, I want more understanding of this. Give me more clarity, and it will. It'll give you clarity from multiple directions. It will give you more inspiration and revelation internally. And as I've said before in other casts and spaces, a lot of times it comes in as a new inspiration from your halo. You'll process that through your actual mind, the intelligence, and then it needs to get down into your intuition and your instinct, which is the subjective consciousness. And the thing about all the four consciousnesses, the unconscious, the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious, they're very, very different in the way they communicate. And so they need a common denominator or some relativity way to communicate. And there's one thing they can all agree upon, and that is experience. That's why we dream. If you want to think you go into different dimensions, cool, that's where I lean. But even if you wanted to think that it's just happening in your brain, regardless, there's a reason why when you sleep, you have a bunch of experiences in those dreams. It allows you to actually not just take the inspiration and the intelligence, but live it out and experience it. And it really helps to embed things in your subconscious without having to do a bunch of crazy stuff in this reality, right? So anyways, with that being said, going back to the that cross, right? So the material world, the manifested world, it's our job to be the heart and bring that in union with the divine. It's, for me, it says in the Bible and Scripture, let the mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. I'm gonna tell you guys, look, one of the greatest revelations and understandings that I have is that I don't have to use my own mind as in the subjective mind alone to figure out things, right? When they say give it to God, that's what I'm really doing. But I'm realizing that it's an unknown source. And so, like I was saying earlier, the way that you see your world, look at your world with appreciation and be like, wow, what a beautiful creation. Thank whatever's manifesting in front of you, because it is a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted projective reflection of your conception of yourself, whereby it is your child. You made it. And any judgment you have against it is that whole lack energy, and you're thinking you didn't. You're thinking it made you. And it's that understanding that you feed that will literally disappoint. It will disappoint you. It will disappoint you, or because cause and effect are one, you disappointed it. So to disappoint means to remove from office. You disappointed it. You took it away from your responsibility. And you're saying, well, what responsibility? And I know that this statement that I'm making can sound strange to people, anybody who's listening to this, although the more we are identifying as the body, personality matrix, the subjective consciousness, the more likely it is when I say things like, you are responsible for your reality, there might be some pushback. Because the weird thing is that the subjective consciousness personality matrix is not responsible for where it is. It's simply a creation. So if you look at that thing that's the effect, and you worship the creature, and you worship the creator, it's not going to make sense when I say that. Because you're going to be like, no, that's not my fault. Why did it happen? It's like, but you have to understand this, you got to transcend that. And that's what a lot of my cast is about. If you haven't listened to the other episodes, they're really like, there's a big focus on hitting it from many, many, many different angles to show you that you cannot just be this body that you think you are. It doesn't make any sense. If you were just a body, if I said, who are you? And you point to your body right now and say, this is what I am. That's nonsense. Because I could go back in time when you were a baby and ask that same question, and if you were a baby and you could talk, you'd say, I'm this. No, you're not. If you were that, then you would always be that. But you didn't. You shed off that entire body with cellular regeneration and completely created multiple new bodies since then, and have been inside of them the whole time. Which means or you point to yourself right there. You're in a particular space time. You're in a particular space-time coordinate at that moment. And if you walk into another room, then you're at a different space-time coordinate, right? So you are the thing that transcends it, right? So that's really helpful. So the me is not responsible. I am responsible. The I am is the creator. The me is the created. Me cannot create I. Only I can create me. And somewhere in the middle is where I find myself. So the I is the energy. The me is the vibration. The myself is the frequency. It's the unifier, the conduit. And that's our job, is to develop relationship and join things that seem to be in opposition to one another and bring them into harmony. So you take the impersonal, unknown, invisible source of the creator and channel it in through your halo, right? To give you new information to experience this world, and then you have your boots on the ground, your feet on the ground. That's the material world that's in front of you, and to bring them into harmony with one another. And it begins with how you see them, right? And Jesus said, of all the commandments, I give you this: love God first with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and then love yourself as thy neighbor, right? Now, what's fascinating about this is so many people have interpreted the word yira in the Bible to mean fear, fear God, which makes no sense. Not if you want to have a clear channel to create miracles in the way that I'm proposing to create miracles or express miracles. And that is because you don't actually create the miracles already made. But anyways, to express miracles. So it begins with opening up that channel and purifying the channel. And, if the unknown power, source of the creator is going to come through your halo, if you look at that source as a judgmental man, a jealous God, right? And in Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah, it says, or Job, no, Exodus, it says, for God, for Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Think about that. It says, for Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. What is that telling us? So they named their God. They named their God. They personified it. And so now, as they were all praying to that source, so they were still drawing in from the creator source, which is impersonal, but they colored it with a particular energy frequency. And they convinced themselves and others that it was a judgmental, jealous being that demanded sacrifice. You can create your own demons very easily. That's what's happening. That's why it's like creating demons, and that's why when I say demons, I'm just saying, look, it's just a program. You're the one responsible for it. You accepted it, you allowed it, it's dead. It's literally not alive. It's as simple as just taking the same power that created that and just creating a tutelary spirit. That's it. But knowing who's responsible for it, right? So, and that's why for anybody who's read some of the Old Testament and you read some of the stuff, and you're like, I don't understand. Or people that hear me and they're like, you say scripture all the time. I've said multiple times, you'll hear me say scripture. It's the living word. And this world and this experience gives us free will. Free will for what? Free will to choose to create our lives in any way we see fit. But in order to do that, you need choice. And in order to have choice, you need polarity. And so if you have the option where you could make the best choice for yourself and your life and your surroundings, which, by the way, if you wish the best for your world, you're also wishing the best for yourself. It's just how it works. Then you have to have the inversion of that, the option to make a choice that would be the worst for you and your world. And now once you have those two polarities, you have literally an infinite array of frequencies and degrees in between those two. It's fascinating. It's like if I have cold and boiling, I could literally make an infinite number of degrees in between those two. I've said it before. It's the whole frog thing. The riddle. If a frog hops across a yard, half of the distance of the yard every second, when will the frog reach the other side? And the answer is never. That's kind of a crazy thing if you want to think about it. And that can show you how the infinite can reside in the finite, and the finite in the infinite. It's kind of beautiful. How the all-powerful, omnipotent creator could be in something as small as your I am presence, right? It's magical, right? And the Bible says, whatsoever you do to the least of these, you do unto me. Right? So anyway, so that's one thing to keep in mind. You at the heart are going to decide, as an I am present child of God, creator being, that ultimately does have dominion over the world that you exist in. Ignorance is no excuse for the law. So opening up a clear channel to the divine is very helpful. And I'm not going to dive into that because I have some other stuff to finish here. But it's also, you can just ask it. Like, I look at it like it's connected to a divine mind that has all the answers, right? And if I don't get the answer to a question, I didn't ask it right, or my faith isn't sufficient, and I just have to have some patience, right? All right, so that's that, right? So you have the material world in front of you, and then you have the halo, which can bring in new information. The way you see your outer world, if you see your outer world as an enemy, it's going to be an enemy. It's what it is. If you see your outer world as the creator, it's going to seem to act as the creator, as the source. But then you can be trying to get blood from a stone, right? If you see a creator as having the behaviors of a created, it's like inverted, right? So now you're acting like the creator has the personality aspects of something that's created. So it's muddied and personal and judgmental. You literally, it's like, it's inverted, man. For they knew the knowledge of God is a lie, and they worship the creature more than the creator, right? It's backwards, man. Evil live backwards in spelling and in truth. They personified their source, which is by its nature the least limited, defined, and needy aspect. The most impersonal, selfless aspect of ourselves has been denominated to be this personified being that is limited and needy. It literally, guys, think about this. It needed sacrifices. What? Come on. Think about it. It's crazy. Look, law of inversions. This isn't even anything that crazy. If there's a material world, take the features and the characteristics that make up the material world and say, what are the opposite? The immaterial world. And realize that between those two, you will always be in the center. That's it. That's why the Christ fish, the Vesica Pisces and the Mandorla, it's two overlapping circles. As above, so below. That's it, man. But think about it, right? So you have this aspect of you that has the ability to, in Isaiah it says, for behold, I bring all things new. Do you perceive it? I make a way in the wilderness and bring rivers in the desert, in the wasteland. The part of you that has the ability to bring in miracles is the least needy, the least limited, and the least defined. Put no false idols before me. No false images. Do not personify that source. Agape. It will give. It doesn't take. It can't take. It only gives. It's funny, I was in a space the other day and someone actually muted me when I said that the world is actually give and receive, nothing can be taken. They didn't like that. But it gives. It's give and receive. Right? Even if you have an experience of being taken from, that experience was manifest out of nothing. So even that experience was given to you and given and received by you. Know where we are. We're in the heart. And so they personified the source, which muddies the waters. And now all that power for creating your next moment is saturated with a being that's judgmental. Judge not, lest ye be judged, and by an equal measure shall ye be judged. So now you believe it punished everybody else. You believe it might be punishing you. That's why you could see you can see. I'm not saying that this is like the law here. When you go to spiritual institutions, sometimes people that are really religious into the dogma of a punishing God will be very judgmental people. because deep in their hearts, they are so scared that their God is going to condemn them that they subconsciously seek out behaviors in others that are worse than what they think their own behaviors are, because their subjective consciousness knows that everything is subjective, that good and bad is a degree, right? And so it's trying to find other people that are worse than themselves, because they could say, well, if that person's 50 points on the lying scale and I'm only 5, then I win, right? So I'm not really lying, I'm not really judgmental, I'm not really wrathful, I'm not really lustful, I only do this some of the time. And so it's this constant battle of trying to find other people worse than themselves, right? Or not only that, not only do they want to find the people, they literally will revel in it. You could see this with some people who have a misunderstanding, and they talk about, Armageddon, Revelation, apocalypse coming and punishing everybody. They almost rejoice in it, because they're trying so desperately to believe that mean God figure they have is going to go punish the other people, and it will prove that they don't deserve to be punished. And guys, look, I mean, at the end of the day, if someone believes that, they can create that reality for themselves, because it is an impersonal force. But I assure you, as the Bible says, when you walk in the truth, 1,000 can fall at your left side and 10,000 can fall at your right side, and you will not be harmed. The armor of God is the truth. The way we create is by the way we see, the way we observe. Observe, right? What are you going to choose to see? Going back to our other thing, appreciation appreciates, right? Appreciate the outer world as being a perfect, mathematically precise, inverted, projected expression or reflection of your conception of yourself. God looked upon the world and said, all things are good. Look at the source of your being as an infinite, limitless, impersonal, giving force that gives perfectly every time. Appreciate yourself as a heart. And your ability when you join all these things together to find the love and harmony and peace that you want in your life, and in the miracles for not just you, but for everybody who comes in contact with you, who's looking for them, right? So that's the vertical line on the cross, and then the horizontal line is, think on your left side is your past interpretations, on your right side is your future possible self. They both communicate with you in a sense, but again, they're not really alive. You are the life, right? So what this means is that, let's say, some people say, oh, you're good enough. Yes, you are good enough, right? But for the sake of this reality, the world is deliberately imperfect. Perfect meaning finished. It is unfinished presently, right? The minute it's finished, everything dies. It's over. There's no life. There's no resurrection. There's no movement. There's no expansion. There's no expression, right? Everything's over. So there's value in that imperfection, in those flaws, in that space and room to improve, right? For a tree to grow or shed its leaves or to get wider, it's to express and expand. Like literally, heaven, Uranus, means expansion, right? So it's a good thing, right? And so we can appreciate our past interpretations, especially the ones, or just as importantly, the ones that no longer align with things that serve us, because it's an opportunity to grow and improve and make corrections, right? So we can appreciate them. It's even easier to appreciate them when, if you ever wonder why the devil speaks to you in your own voice, it's because they're just an amalgam of your past interpretations and expressions of what you believed you were. And so on your left shoulder, you have something just kind of parroting back to you. That's all it is. Now, for a long time, depending on what perspectives you're putting in there, there might be an interesting relationship between you and that, and it may have to feel very personal. It may not. I don't know. I had my own ways of doing it. I don't know if the ways I did it needed to be done that way, or if I was just exploring the best way to heal it, or something. Do other people have to do it? I don't know. Do I? Maybe I just carry. Maybe I had the experience of overcoming it, so I can speak it to other people, and the energy signature carried within the words can make the process a lot easier for other people. Who knows? But eventually, what we come to find is that if there's something inside of your head that says like, I want to do something, it's something that just doesn't seem like it's in alignment with what you truly want. Like, it's like if you want to go right and it's like, I want to go left, right? But you've already decided, hey, I want to go right. It's just whatever it is, you programmed it, with saying that you want to go left. It would be, it'd be as simple as this, right? Imagine every day you used to drive to, you worked at a certain job, and when you pull out of the first street, the street that your house is on, let's say to go to your old job, you used to take a left, right? That's just what you did, right? And now you have a new job. It's like your first day on the new job, right? And this time you're supposed to take a right. Man, let's not say it's not the first day, but like, let's say you've been working at the new job for a couple of days, right? Can you imagine like one day you get up, you got other things on your mind, you're not really paying attention, right? You're not fully present. And instead of taking a right to the new job, you quote unquote accidentally take a left to go down the other job. Does that mean there's an evil demon in there that is out to get you and destroy you and wants to make you late to work? Not in that case. If there is possibility to create programs that can seem like they're sabotaging you, it's a little bit more complex, but ultimately it's just doing what you told it to do. It's not alive. I assure you, it's not alive. It's just a script, right? So the point I'm getting to here is that as you came upon that turn, if you were distracted, not really paying attention, the mind is going to do what it's just going to revert to its prior programming to help you, to serve you. And so that's why I took a left there. So what's going to happen is if you've lived a life where, you didn't believe in miracles and, you weren't experiencing miracles, and it felt like quite the opposite. You felt maybe like you were a statistic, you felt like life was gloomy. You felt like life was dark. You felt like, people lied and there wasn't camaraderie, like just a bunch of negative things running in those programs. We're gonna require patience, right? Who knows? Maybe it could be in a twinkling of an eye. Who knows, right? But I like to approach it with the idea that I'll be as patient. I know it's coming; it's inevitable, so it will happen when it happens. But a lot of times, it's gonna be correcting those old things. It'd be like being more present. Especially now that you can be present, you can understand that you're in the heart. You're in between your past interpretations and your future possibility, right? Left and right. And then also in between the material world, that which is manifest in the body and the outer people, and the crown chakra, right? Which is the crown, the halo, which can pull in the divine. And they can all work in unison. So now you have a source of it. And think about the halo is connected to the universal, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient source that can bring in anything, for you. And you'd say, well, how come it doesn't feel like I get the answer right away? It may take some time because you may have a lot of beliefs and values and interpretations about what the creator was. Like, you may not even believe in a creator. You may not actually believe that there's, something see, it's not technically outside of you. Because the crazy part is the body's actually inside of you, which is just weird. But you're experiencing being the body. So for the sake of this analogy, we can look at it like there's a halo going in your head. But really, it's coming from inside of you, right? But that's just really the best way to kind of describe it for you. And so that when you see it as that, you're connected to the divine mind, and it knows things. It has a bird's eye view of your world. It sees things that you can't see, and you don't have to focus on that. Just beat your heart, pump the blood, right? Do-doom, do-doom, do-doom. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in love, exhale love. Take in, express, take in, express, take in, express, right? And so we're going to wrap this up, but did I want to say? Yeah, we're just going to wrap it up on this ones. Yeah, I figured it would be important to cover that for this Miracle Mindset series because to love God first with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, really it's important to dissolve the false idol and image It says nobody's looked upon the face of God and lived, right? So if you want to live, truly live, like when they say live, it means to like awaken all the way. And you realize as you do it that you were asleep. You know, they put Adam in a deep slumber. Truly live. I think it was important to discuss this and really get that kind of idea, right? So there's no devil against you. The reason the devil talks to you in your own voice is because it's all the I ams that you've said over the years and accepted about yourself, about you, you know, which in most cases for most people was literally based upon the idea that you're separate from everybody else. You're separate from the universal mind. You're separate from your source of being, and that of your own self, you have to do everything. And by self, I mean the part of you that is the personality matrix, which is only a small part of you. Just like you, who's listening to this right now, is a small part of all of the person that you've been, right? It's a moment in space-time. That's not all that you are. It's a piece, right? You know thyself. All right, guys. See you soon.